Well, Jack Smith has dropped the indictment against President Trump for his involvement in J6. It looks like the tables are about to be turned on the Democrats and most particularly on the now disgraced Republican Liz Cheney. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Literally moments after Jack Smith announced that he was dropping all J6 charges against President Trump, Arizona Representative Andy Biggs tweeted this out, quote, "The J6 lawfare against President Trump was rightfully dismissed yesterday. President Trump must pardon all J6 political prisoners on January 20th, and Congress must hold accountable the bad actors involved in the sham J6 committee. There will be no peace for the wicked." Now, this claim that the J6 committee was indeed a sham is rooted in the fact that the committee had no pretenses whatsoever of objectivity. It was not a committee that sought to get to the bottom of what actually happened on J6. No, it was a committee that was set up for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to completely destroy President Trump. It really was the very definition of a kangaroo court. It was a committee that began with the verdict of Trump's guilt already assumed. Every single member had previously voted to impeach President Trump. That was Pelosi's sole requirement for appointing a person to that committee. They began with Trump's guilt already predetermined. All they had to do was find the evidence to fit the crime that he had already been convicted of in the eyes of every single person sitting on that committee. Permanent Washington's legacy media did everything they possibly could to sell this committee to the American people. And now the truth is coming out. Despite their best efforts at selling us this lie, more and more people are realizing just how rankly partisan and corrupt that committee was. And if you thought there were doubts about its legitimacy before, just wait until you see the latest shocking revelations to come out in the last few days. This is going to absolutely blow you away. But first, gang, let's give a huge shout out to one of our sponsors who make these videos possible, and that's Liver Health Formula. If you're one of the 100 million Americans struggling with all the weight gain and loss of energy that comes with a fatty liver, these patriots are going to be your absolute best friend. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement. It contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA, and it's approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you could try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Gang, you know this is personal for me. I myself recently lost over 60 pounds, and I could say it was absolutely one of the best decisions I ever made. And now it's your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. My namesake, Jonathan Turley, has a very good article out. He just published it on the latest revelations that show just how corrupt the J6 committee really was. A newly released transcript of testimony confirms that President Trump did indeed request upwards of 10,000, again, underscore that number, 10,000 National Guard troops to maintain order and peace on January the 6th. And on top of that, we now have video showing Pelosi privately admitting that she and the Democrat leadership were indeed responsible for the security failure on January 6th.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
No, there's not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
And yet, despite all that evidence, despite everything that showed that Trump was calling for National Guard security and Pelosi herself admitting that she failed in that security. Despite all of that, the J6 committee, as Turley points out, repeatedly denied that Trump ever did any such thing. I mean, after all, such an effort would hardly fit with the narrative, would it? It'd be a rather curious attempt at an insurrection if Trump was suggesting the use of thousands of troops to prevent any breach of Congress. But again, this wasn't about facts. This was about fabrication. This wasn't about news. This was about narrative. A narrative that was supposed to forever politically destroy President Trump. Moreover, and this just came out a couple of days ago, Georgia Representative Barry Loudermilk, who chairs the House Administration's Subcommittee on Oversight, he just revealed that the Defense Department deliberately and inexplicably delayed the eventual deployment of National Guard troops in the critical hours of the riot. Now, they were called out at exactly 3:18 p.m. That's when officials gave the National Guard the green light to act in response to the security breach at the Capitol building. And yet, they didn't do anything until 5 p.m. They did not physically leave the armory until 5 p.m., even though they were given the green light to move literally 2 hours prior to that. 2 hours. And that's key because had they been deployed much earlier, so much of what happened in terms of the breach of security could have obviously been prevented. And now, on top of that, we're getting word that the fellow who killed Ashley Babbitt, Captain Michael Byrd, who shot and killed Babbitt even though she was unarmed, we're now learning that he was in fact a disciplinary case. Now, this is the guy who has been lauded as a hero by the legacy media. Obviously so, because it fits with the narrative. But we now know he had a number of prior disciplinary and training issues, including, quote, a failed shotgun qualification test, a failed FBI background check for a weapons purchase, a 33-day suspension for a lost weapon, and referral to Maryland state prosecutors for firing his gun at a stolen car fleeing his neighborhood. So, needless to say, all of these revelations are calling for a full and complete investigation, not only into J6, but also into the ridiculously compromised committee that supposedly provided such an investigation. That is clearly in order. Trump, of course, has long been calling for the J6 committee to be investigated and frankly indicted. Specifically back in March of this year, it was widely reported that Trump said that Cheney and the whole of the J6 committee should be sent to prison for what they did in this fabrication. And specifically, Trump was concerned by the way in which the lead witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, had appeared to change her testimony over time. Now, at the time Trump was calling for the jailing of the committee, basically, he was resoundingly mocked by the media because we knew very little about what was indeed actually going on between Hutchinson and Cheney behind the scenes. Trump seemed to know, but there were no reports revealing the fact that the two were indeed communicating behind the scenes, unbeknownst to Hutchinson's lawyers. We now know that Liz Cheney was in secret communications with Hutchinson. We actually have the text messages shared between Cheney and Hutchinson where Cheney actually coached her on what to say before her testimony. I mean, it doesn't get more crooked than that. So it does look like the walls are finally closing in on this theatrical corruption that engulfed Capitol Hill for so many months. The legacy media was cheerleading for the committee to finally and decisively condemn President Trump to the ash heap of history. Ironically, it turns out that the only ones the committee ultimately ended up condemning were themselves.